achieved.
Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we're going to take a look at UFC on Fuel TV, Ellenberger versus Sanchez, which will take place live on February 15th, which is a Wednesday night, and don't, mark that down on the calendar, you don't want to miss out. Now, as I said before in previous videos, I'm cutting back a little bit on what I'm going to be doing with the videos. So in this episode, I'll be predicting the main event, co-main event, and a middleweight matchup between Ronny and Aaron Simpson. For the rest of my predictions, head over to KamikazeOverdrive.net. I'm going to type them up and add them to the site as we go, so you can go over and read them there. You probably comment there as well. So please check them out, KamikazeOverdrive.net. They'll be posted along with the video. And the website, yes, it is live. And I couldn't have asked for a better show to kick it off with than UFC 143. I went 7-1 overall with my predictions, along with picking the New York Giants to win the Super Bowl. And it was a fantastic night. Personally, I cashed in huge, as well as the individuals who purchased the Kamikaze Overdrive betting package for UFC 143. For a $5 investment, it paid out at $804 to everyone who purchased, pushing my two-fight total to $1,000, just over $1,000 payout to the people who've invested. So $10 in exchange for $1,000. That's a pretty good exchange, I would say, there. As always, very grateful to all of my sponsors, MMABettingOdds.com, CouchFighter.co, MMACrifts.com, FightTV.com, all the sites that are posting and hosting my videos. Thank you very much to them. Now, if you're a Twitter follower, @FaxMMA is a very cool Twitter feed, so please check them out. They've got some fighters following. They post a lot of really neat stuff. So @FaxMMA, please check them out. And this past weekend, I forged a brand new partnership with Kamikaze Overdrive MMA, and I'm officially in a partnership with the Adrenaline Training Center in London, Ontario, which is, of course, the home to UFC fighters Sam Stout, Mark Hominick, Chris Clements, and former WEC and current Bellator competitor Chris Hordeski. So you're going to see some new stuff popping up on my videos involving them, including some information and feeds. They'll also be on my website, and as we go, our relationship will certainly grow and develop, and you'll see a lot of them in my show. So that's another thing moving forward. The Grand Prix prediction got through our second event of the finals, UFC 143, and Klubel was trailing 18-17 going into after the first event, had a 23-17 win in the second event, which gives them an overall score of 40-35 over Kane Gotti. So 40-35 for Klubel through two events. This event and UFC 144 will wrap up the Grand Prix prediction tournament, and of course you can read all about it on the website. And again, these guys are fantastic predictors, doing a heck of a job, and I post their picks. When they send them in, we get them all lined up. I post them on KamikazeOverdrive.net, so if you want to see what these guys are picking for these fights, please head over to the website and you can check them out there. And I think that's enough from me, so let's get into my first set of predictions. In the middleweight division, 10-2-0 Aaron A-Train Simpson meets 12-1-0 Ronny Marks. Now, Simpson has won 3 in a row, while Marks earned a decisive decision win in his UFC debut over Carlos Vemela. Now, Ronny Marks did debut at 205, and despite a dominant performance where he completely dictated the flow of the fight, he's made the decision to drop a weight class. Now, against Vemela, he was able to out-wrestle the wrestler, and in order to emerge victorious in this matchup, he will need to have similar success against Aaron Simpson. Now, Simpson is a former NCAA Division I wrestler and uses a predominantly wrestling-based attack, while Ronny Marks is a BJJ black belt with 4 submission wins, completing all 6 of his takedowns while shutting down Vemela's 4 takedown attempts. On top, Marks keeps a body-on-body pressure. He doesn't do a lot of ground and pound, and he slowly works to improve his position, waiting for his openings to materialize. Conversely, Simpson has only racked up 1 submission win, and he completes just around 35% of his takedown attempts. Although his takedown percentage isn't great, he averages over 4 takedown attempts per 15 minutes. In a 4-fight span in the UFC, he attempted 62 takedown attempts, including 26 against Mario Miranda, of which he completed 10. Simpson will use his hands to set up his shot, attacking with a 1-2 before dropping for a single leg. A-Train spent the majority of the Brad Tavares fight pushing his opponent into the cage, switching between single and double legs, and even though he didn't have a lot of success getting Tavares on his back, he was still able to control the fight with the clinch. Now, Marks had similar success tying up Vemela on the cage using wrist control to neutralize his adversary, and 1 fight prior, he used the same approach against former WEC champ Paulo Filho. Now, the Brazilian uses a variety of takedowns, shooting for a double leg, grabbing the single followed by a trip, and just powering his opponent down when he gets him along the cage. In most situations, he was able to catch Vemela off balance, which really aided his ability to complete the takedown attempt. Defensively, he forced the wrestler out of his comfort zone by stuffing his takedowns, using a front headlock and underhook to stop the forward push, and then taking control of the exchange from there. Now, Aaron Simpson has fantastic takedown D, stuffing 81%, and he has faced his fair share of grappling-based opponents, including wins over 3 BJJ black belts. Simpson makes few mistakes during grappling exchanges, and even if his opponent is able to get him off his feet, he's difficult to keep down. If the fighters remain at distance, Marks has power but very rough technique, leaving his chin unprotected while throwing wild looping punches. Now, Simpson doesn't have the most diverse striking attack, using some kicks, and he does have significant power, especially in his right hand, and he often attacks with a flurry of short punches. He has a tendency to drop his head when he punches, which has left him vulnerable to counter strikes. Now, cardio-wise, both men have gone the distance several times. Simpson is significantly older than Marks, which is certainly a concern, but Marks will have to deal with the weight cut, which could balance out. If the weight cut goes well, it could provide him with some physical advantages on the other hand. If the fight stays standing, I give Simpson the edge, and in the grappling department, as long as A-Train can keep off his back, he should be able to dictate the flow. I expect to see a lot of this fight contested in the clinch along the cage, which is a style both fighters are familiar with. But I like the veteran to do just enough here, so my prediction is Aaron Simpson to defeat Ronny Marks by decision. In the co-main event of the evening, UFC heavyweight Stefan Skyscraper Struve, 26-5-0, and Dave Pee Wee Herman, 21-2-0, will clash. Herman was victorious in his UFC debut, while Struve will be attempting to build on a submission victory over Pat Barry. Collectively, these two heavyweights are proven finishers with a combined 40 finishes, 20 each in 43 total victories. Now, Struve's wins have come predominantly by submission, with 15 compared to 5 wins by knockout. Coincidentally, Herman has a similar split of 15-5, but with the majority of his wins by KO or TKO. Now, despite his low knockout numbers, Struve is a Dutch-trained kickboxer and has shown knockout power, most notably in the Christian Moorcraft fight. Statistically, Struve lands 47% of his strikes, while taking slightly less damage, avoiding 54% of his opponent's striking attempts. He will attack with straight punches, knees, and kicks, all typical of a kickboxer, and he's a patient striker, but he really doesn't maximize the advantages that should be provided by his physical attributes. Against Pat Barry, he had a near 10-inch reach advantage, but HD was still able to get inside and land on several occasions. And against Roy Nelson, Struve wasn't able to maintain any form of distance and eventually got himself knocked out by an overhand right from the much shorter fighter. Now, Struve has shown a tremendous heart in fights and the ability to fight through some difficult moments, but his knockout losses to Nelson, Junior Dos Santos, and Travis Brown raise questions about his chin. Now, Dave Herman, although not on the scale of 6'11", Struve is still a very big man. Herman is a mobile heavyweight using a lot of movement. In his debut, he maintained an oddly strange level of calm in the cage despite taking part in such an intense fight. Herman's performance appeared a little bit sloppy and he seemed to gas out, but these issues could be attributed to octagon jitters. Now, Herman has significant power, but he deploys it in a very unorthodox style. Herman relies heavily on knee strikes, both attacking with a rising knee and knee strikes from the clinch. Against John Olavinamo, he was able to repeatedly use the tie clinch to control Ainamo, and what makes his technique so effective is the manner in which he is able to pull his opponent's head down into his knees. Now, Herman has power in his hands, and he will attack with a variety of kicks as well, including low, body, front, and against Ainamo he attempted an axe kick. On the negative side, he has a tendency to get away from using his movement and standing directly in front of his opponent, which makes him much easier to hit, and Ainamo was able to capitalize on several occasions, landing a right hand. If this fight goes to the ground, Herman's a former collegiate wrestler and performed admirably against his last opponent, who was a BJJ black belt. Now, Struve is a BJJ purple belt and has shown himself to be quite skilled on the ground, using his long limbs to control his opponent and create submission opportunities. Against Sean McCorkle, he was able to reverse from the bottom position and eventually stopped his opponent with ground and pound, and his submission win over Pat Barry was equally as impressive, as he was able to transition until the triangle choke presented itself. But Struve has also had problems on the ground, getting pummeled badly by Christian Moorcraft, who was able to keep Struve on his back, posture up, and attack. Struve averages well under one takedown attempt per fight, so I don't anticipate him taking Herman down. I anticipate that Herman is going to use his movement, push the action, get inside Struve's reach, and use his power. Struve had trouble with Paul Buentello's brawling style, where he used a lot of movement, and Herman has more tools to attack his opponent with, so my prediction is Dave Herman to defeat Stefan Struve by knockout. Up next, we move to the main event of the evening, and this fight is my Adrenaline Training Center Certified Overdrive Fight of the Night. Now, in the UFC welterweight division, Jake the Juggernaut Ellenberger, 26-5-0, battles 25-4-0 Diego the Dream Sanchez. Ellenberger's won 5 in a row and 9 of 10, while Diego has a 2-fight winning streak with wins in 6 of 8. Now, both men have wrestling backgrounds and will rely on their grappling skills when needed. Diego's a BJJ brown belt and with 9 wins by submission, and Ellenberger, one level below him with a purple belt, has 5 submission victories. Diego's never been tapped out. Conversely, Jake has been caught once. Now, strictly looking at submission grappling, I give a slight edge to Diego. Ellenberger has had issues in the past with talented grapplers, most notably Carlos Eduardo Rocha. Now, moving to the wrestling, the pendulum swings back significantly in the favor of Ellenberger. Jake completes an impressive 74% of his takedowns compared to only 22% for Diego. The Juggernaut has an incredibly powerful double leg driving through his opponent. He will both shoot from the outside or clinch, throw a knee, and drop down for the shot. Now, Sanchez relies more on the single leg, pushing forward aggressively, setting it up with a quick 1-2 before dropping down. Diego has had problems in fights where he wasn't able to get his opponent on their back. In his 4 career losses, he went 3 for 44, and throw in his controversial win over Martin Kampmann, where he went 1 for 15, and it's very apparent how crucial it is for Diego to be able to complete his takedowns. Now, this could be the key aspect of this matchup, as Ellenberger defends an incredible 90% of takedowns attempted, while Diego sits at 49%, and he has been taken down several times throughout his career. Overall, I give Ellenberger the edge because when the fight goes to the ground, it should be on his terms, with his ability to defend and complete takedowns being superior to Diego's. On the feet, neither man is technically gifted striker, with both keeping it fairly simple. Diego is aggressive and is most effective when he's able to cut off the cage and brawl. Against Martin Kampmann, he struggled early, but when he started walking down Kampmann and forcing him to fight with his back against the cage, he turned the momentum of that fight in his favor. Now, Jake Ellenberger has dangerous power, collecting 17 wins by knockout. He's known for his right hand, hurting Carlos Condit on several occasions, but he also knocked out Sean Pearson with a short, powerful left. He has an underrated clinch game. He was able to stop Jake Shields with knees from the clinch, and we really haven't seen Ellenberger hurt in a fight. He did get tagged a couple times by John Howard when he aggressively pushed forward, but Jake was able to circle away or use his takedowns to short-circuit Howard's aggression. Conversely, Diego has been rocked a couple of times in fights. BJ Penn and Kampmann were able to drop him with a straight right hand, and being a southpaw, Diego is naturally vulnerable to attacks from the right side. In order to have success in this matchup, Sanchez needs to be aggressive, but Ellenberger should be able to negate Diego's forward push through a combination of superior wrestling skills and physical strength, in a very similar fashion to what he did in the Howard fight. Now, both men have excellent cardio, and I don't foresee Sanchez being able to break Jake with his pace like he's done so many times before. Ellenberger has scary power in his right, and unless Diego has worked diligently on his striking defense, there should be openings for him to land it. So my prediction is Jake Ellenberger to defeat Diego Sanchez by knockout. Welcome back to Kamikaze Countdown. I want to talk about 2 fights from UFC 143. The first being Mike Pierce versus Josh Koscheck. Now, I took Mike Pierce to win, although Josh Koscheck won a close split decision. I think Mike Pierce actually deserved the victory. He outlanded Koscheck both in overall strikes and significant strikes. Koscheck did have the edge 2-1 in takedowns. I don't think they should have played a role in the overall decision, simply because neither fighter did anything when they got to position. Their opponent was able to get back up with limited damage. I think Koscheck was aided overall by the fact that an unintentional headbutt created a kind of a blood flow with Mike Pierce and made it look like Koscheck was doing more damage. I think he was also aided by his name. If Pierce had a bit more of a name, I think he would have done better with the judges' decisions. I know that's not supposed to play a factor, but I think it does. But in the end, I really feel the way that fight played out justified my pick of Mike Pierce. It played out pretty much like I said it would, a grinding, tough, scrappy fight in which Pierce was going to put hands on Koscheck's face, and Koscheck noticeably did not like it and did not dominate the fight like many thought he would with his takedowns, as Pierce forced him to work very hard for them, and Koscheck wasn't able to just shoot at will. He had to pick his positions. So either way, Koscheck gets the win. I still think it was a fight that it played out the way I expected it to, regardless of the actual outcome. Now, Carlos Condit, Nick Diaz, very controversial. Carlos Condit getting the win, which I predicted, but I see both sides of the story. Nick Diaz clearly was the more aggressive fighter, pushing forward and walking down Condit. People are accusing him of running. I think of more of a very smart game plan. He circled away. He looked at Nick Diaz. He looked at the tape, and anyone can see with Nick Diaz, he's most effective when he has you backing up and he has you pinned along the cage, and he's feeding you with shots. Carlos Condit looked at that and said, well, I'm going to circle off the cage then, and if Nick Diaz is going to beat me, he's going to have to come up with something different. Nick Diaz's style, he didn't land enough strikes. Carlos Condit's strike numbers were aided by the kicks he was landing, but simply put, Diaz didn't do enough to earn the victory. Walking a guy down and taunting him, I don't think is on the same level as punching a guy in the face, throwing spinning elbows, and attempting multiple kicks. Carlos, it was a very close fight. I would probably like to see a rematch. I don't know if we're going to see that or not. But it really is, it's a good argument for what was more effective. I think in the end, Carlos Condit did more overall damage, but I know that's up to interpretation. And there were certain moments where Diaz had him pinned against the cage and was wailing on him. But looking for the overall fight, I really think Carlos Condit did eke out a slight, very close decision victory. It probably should have been a split decision. I could see somebody easily giving it to Nick Diaz. Either way, it's a controversial fight. It's going to talk about for a while. I really hope Nick Diaz reconsiders his retirement. It does not look good on him whether he quits. Leaving on that note, I think he comes back, earn himself a title shot, whether it be against Condit or GSP, and go out and prove that he deserves the victory in a rematch. Kamikaze Countdown. Thank you for watching. So those are my predictions for UFC on Fuel TV, Ellenberger versus Sanchez. You can check out the rest of my breakdowns for the rest of the fights on the card at kamikazeoverdrive.net. They'll be posted along with the video, so please check them out. And you can probably comment on the website. Also available in the next coming days will be my betting package for this event. UFC 143's betting package for a flat rate of $5, paid out $804 to all invested. So if you are considering doing some betting at this event, certainly a worthwhile venture. It pushes my two-fight total to over $1,000. Again, you can check out the website for more details there. If you don't want to buy them, you don't have to, but it certainly helps you to figure out who to put with you and how much money to invest and what's a solid return on an investment like that. As always, thank you very much to all of my sponsors. The Kamikaze Overdrive Tournament, a Grand Prix prediction tournament, is heading to its third event of 4 in the tournament finals. Klubal and Kane Gotti, the two last men standing out of 32 competitors. Their fights, their predictions will also be available. These guys really know their stuff, and closer to the event, you'll be able to go onto the website and check out where these guys feel, how these guys feel the fights are going to play out. That's enough from me. I hope you enjoyed the show. Again, kamikazeoverdrive.net. Thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you back here for UFC 144.